The prison transfer that changed U.S. history. What really happened behind the gates? The prison transfer that changed U.S. history. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button if you're brave enough. Because once you hear what really happened behind those gates, you'll understand why this story was never supposed to reach the public. The night it began, Highway 71 was silent. A cold mist crawled over the asphalt, swallowing the headlights of the small convoy moving north toward a federal facility known officially as Redwater Transit Center, but rarely spoken of outside certain rooms in Washington. 3 transport vehicles, 2 patrol escorts, and 1 unmarked SUV. No sirens, no radio chatter. Everything arranged with precision, the kind of precision that only appears when someone important is watching. Inside the second transport van sat 3 inmates, each handcuffed, shackled, and separated. One of them was the reason for the secrecy. His name appeared nowhere in public court records. Even the marshals driving the van had only a redacted brief. High risk. Intelligence asset. Keep isolated. But by dawn, 1 marshal would disappear. 1 inmate would vanish. And the United States government would issue a statement so vague, so carefully written, that journalists immediately smelled a cover-up. 16 hours earlier, the story had been routine, at least on paper. Prison transfers happened constantly, across states, across jurisdictions, across custody levels. But this one came with tension humming around it, as if the officers knew something the rest of the world didn't. Deputy Marshal Elena Ward certainly knew. She had received the encrypted file at 4:17 a.m. the morning of the transfer. She'd stared at it 3 times, reading the same redacted lines over and over, trying to understand why a man with no recorded violent offenses required this level of security, why intelligence agents, not corrections officials, requested the move, why she had been selected, when she had no previous connection to the case. 2 words stuck out: national interest. The prisoners were loaded just after midnight. Cameras were temporarily disabled for maintenance, though everyone on that loading dock knew maintenance had nothing to do with it. Even the air felt different, as if the entire prison was holding its breath. The first inmate was a small-time fraudster. The second was a former gang affiliate turned informant. Both men were nervous but confused. They hadn't requested transfers. They hadn't been notified. They were here because somebody decided they needed to be moved. But the third man, known only by the alias Rook, walked out in calm silence, his eyes scanning every corner of the loading bay. No panic, no questions, no fear, as if he knew exactly where he was going and why. Elena noticed everything. The way he measured the distance between himself and the guards, the slow exhale that escaped his chest as he saw the van waiting. This wasn't dread. It was calculation. 40 minutes later, the convoy was moving, and that's when things started to unravel. At the first checkpoint, the guard on duty stepped out of his booth, looked at the authorization code, and paused just a beat too long. He checked a second screen, then a third. His voice trembled slightly when he finally said, "You're cleared. Proceed." Elena caught the look in his eyes, confusion mixed with unease, as if he'd seen something he couldn't explain. 20 miles later, the lead escort reported possible shadowing. A dark SUV had been behind them since they exited the main highway. No plates visible. Windows tinted. When they accelerated, it accelerated. When they slowed, it slowed. Maintain formation, Elena ordered. Do not engage. Standard procedure. But nothing about tonight felt standard. At mile marker 114, everything changed. The unknown SUV suddenly turned off onto a service road and disappeared. No chase, no conflict, just gone. But the timing was too strange, too perfect, as if whoever was inside merely wanted them to know they were being watched. Elena's partner, Marshal Drexel, checked the prisoner camera feed in the back of the van. The fraudster was sweating. The gang informant was whispering a prayer under his breath. Rook, however, sat completely still. Eyes closed, breathing steady, almost waiting. Elena leaned in. "Why are we moving you?" she asked softly, almost to herself. Rook's eyes opened. "To put me where they need me," he replied. She felt her stomach tighten. "Who's they?" He smiled, not smug, not mocking, just a small, quiet smile filled with understanding she didn't have. You'll see soon. Those 3 words stayed with her for the next hour. At 2:41 a.m., a break in the fog revealed the towering silhouette of Redwater Transit Center. Barbed fences layered like teeth, guard towers lit with harsh white lights, razor wire glistening under the mist. The facility wasn't on public maps. It was said to be used for holding inmates during jurisdiction transfers. But even most federal employees had never heard of it. The gates opened slowly, mechanically, as though the entire compound was waking up. Inside, however, Elena sensed something wrong immediately. The guards weren't moving with the usual rigid routine of a facility receiving a high-risk transfer. Instead, they looked uncertain, understaffed, nervous. 2 men in gray tactical uniforms, without visible agency patches, waited beside the intake bay. Drexel whispered, "This place looks half abandoned." Elena didn't respond. She saw it too. The moment the inmates were escorted inside, the fraudster began shaking. "Please," he pleaded. "I don't belong here. I don't know anything about whatever this is." But his voice faded into the empty hall, swallowed by the cold concrete and flickering lights. The intake officer checked the manifest, hesitated, and then frowned. "Where's the 4th?" he asked. Drexel blinked. "4th? We only have 3. The officer stared at his clipboard. Redacted lines, handwritten notes, scratched out sections. It says 4 transfers, 2 low risk, 1 informant, and, his voice lowered, 1 asset. Elena slowly turned her head toward Rook. He stared back at her with calm, unbroken focus. "I told you," he said. "You'll see soon." Before Elena could ask another question, before she could demand clarity, before the intake officer could call a supervisor, a distant alarm echoed through the facility. Not a fire alarm, not a lockdown siren. Something worse. A system alert. Lights shut off. Metal doors slammed. The entire compound shifted into emergency protocol. And then, over the PA system, a message played that froze every person in the room. Containment breach detected. Sector 4. All personnel secure positions. Do not allow the asset to leave the intake wing. Elena's heart stopped. They weren't talking about the facility. They were talking about him. Rook stood still, watching the panic unfold. No surprise on his face. As if he had been expecting this. As if he had planned for it. And then the power went completely out. In the darkness, Elena heard something she would later struggle to describe. Not violence. Not chaos. Just footsteps. Footsteps walking away from where Rook had been standing. But when the emergency lights flickered back on, only one thing was clear. Rook was gone. The door behind him, locked moments earlier, stood wide open. And the intake officer, the one holding the manifest, was missing too. The room filled with stunned silence. Elena stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Drexel, what just happened?" But before he could answer, a guard ran in, breathless and pale. "We found something," he whispered. "In the hallway." Elena braced herself. "What?" The guard swallowed hard. "A message, written on the wall." He hesitated. "It has your name on it." Elena felt the room tilt. "What did it say?" she asked. The guard whispered. "It says, you're already part of this." The hallway stretched before them like a dark tunnel, the message glowing faintly under emergency lights. And Elena realized everything that happened tonight was only the beginning. The rain had stopped, but the road still glistened like a sheet of dark glass as the transfer convoy cut through the night. 3 buses, 4 escort vehicles, dozens of correctional officers stretched in across a route they barely had time to study. But inside the command center at the Department of Corrections, Chief Investigator Dana Rourke wasn't thinking about the poor planning. She was stuck replaying the call that started it all. Someone inside the bus tipped them off. The attackers knew the route. They knew the timing. And they knew exactly who was on board. That last sentence echoed like a threat. If the attackers knew who was being moved, then this wasn't a random ambush. It wasn't a spontaneous act. It was a coordinated strike. And someone had fed them the details. The suspect everyone forgot. Among the 20 inmates being transferred, one name was barely noticed on the paperwork. One man whose criminal record looked ordinary. Petty theft, breaking and entering, nothing that screamed danger. Elias Ward, a quiet man, a loner, no documented gang ties, no disciplinary issues. But Roar could spend her life reading criminals like books, and Elias wasn't a book. He was a locked safe. She pulled his file again, scanning for anything that didn't belong. Previous residence, Baton Rouge. Employment history, blank. Immediate family, none. Emergency contacts, none. Associates, unknown. The more she read, the colder she felt. It wasn't what was there. It was what wasn't. Why would someone with almost no criminal footprint be on a high-security transfer? She whispered to herself. The answer came with a knot in her stomach. Someone wanted him hidden, moved quietly, buried among louder names. Someone wanted him forgotten. The survivor speaks. In a nearby medical wing, Officer Ramirez finally regained consciousness. He was the only escort still able to talk. The others were sedated or undergoing tests. Dana entered the room, her badge still damp from the storm outside. Ramirez's eyes opened slowly, clouded but alert. Where's the rest of the team? They're alive, Dana said gently. But I need you to tell me everything you remember. Ramirez swallowed hard. It happened too fast, the roadblock, the smoke. He paused, breathing heavily. But the strangest thing wasn't the attackers. It was what happened right before. Dana leaned in. Go on. One of the inmates, Ramirez said. He stood up without being told, like he knew something was coming, like he was waiting for it. Dana felt her pulse climb. Which inmate? Ramirez looked at her, with fear tightening his face. The quiet one, the one no one talked to. Elias Ward, Dana whispered. Ramirez nodded. When the attackers hit the bus, he didn't panic. He didn't freeze. He watched them like he recognized them. Dana's chest tightened. Then he said something. Ramirez added, I'll never forget it. She waited. Ramirez stared at the ceiling, shaken. He said, They're early. Hidden motives begin to surface. Dana left the medical wing with her mind spinning. Elias, knowing the attacker's timing, could mean only one thing. He was part of something deeper, something still moving behind the scenes. But if that were true, why would the attackers target a bus carrying their own man? She turned the thought over in her head again and again, unless they weren't trying to rescue him. They were trying to silence him. Dana pushed open the doors to the operations office. I need every recording from the transfer briefing, every overwrite, every login. There's a leak inside this department. Her team scrambled, pulling files and footage. But as hard drives loaded, something appeared that made everyone stop. A video that shouldn't exist. A recording from inside transfer vehicle number 2. A camera angle no one installed. Footage no one authorized. Someone had placed a hidden device inside the bus. Dana played the clip. The timestamp matched the beginning of the route. Officers briefing the inmates. Securing restraints. Double-checking locks. And then, there he was, Elias Ward. Head lowered. Hands resting calmly. Breathing steady. Then, slowly, he raised his eyes and stared directly into the hidden camera. Directly into them. As if he knew exactly where the device had been placed. Dana froze. He's not some low-level offender, she whispered. He's trained. The second attack, no one saw coming. As the office filled with tension, alarm suddenly erupted, loud, sharp, urgent. One of the screens flashed red. Another assault. This one not on the road. Not on a bus. On the holding facility where the surviving inmates had just been transferred after the attack. Dana's heart dropped. Someone was coming to finish the job. She grabbed her radio. Lock down the entire building. Secure the inmates. No one gets in or out. But the warning came too late. Cameras inside the facility flickered, then went dark one by one. Each screen blacking out with static, except for one. A hallway camera showed 3 shadows approaching the detention wing, moving with precision, with purpose, not rushing, not panicked, Calculating. They're already inside, Dana whispered. Her team panicked, reaching for weapons, calling for backup, but none of them understood the truth fast enough. This wasn't an attack. It was a retrieval. The intruders were headed straight for a single cell. Cell 7B. Elias Ward. The cliffhanger. Dana sprinted through the corridor, heart pounding as emergency lights flickered overhead. She turned the final corner just as the intruders reached the door of 7B. One of them inserted a device into the lock. The door clicked open, and then the cell was empty, completely empty. Dana froze in disbelief. He's gone, but how? Then, from somewhere deep in the facility, an alarm she had never heard before started wailing, a warning reserved for the gravest internal breaches. A voice crackled over the intercom. Warning. Sublevel access compromised. Dana's blood ran cold. What sublevel? She whispered. Her deputy looked at her, fear tightening every muscle. We don't have a sublevel. Dana realized the truth at the exact moment the lights shut off. This wasn't just a transfer gone wrong. This was a covert operation buried inside the prison system itself. And Elias Ward wasn't running from danger. He was a danger. The emergency lights sputtered back to life as Dana Rourke moved deeper into the belly of the facility, but their flickering glow only made the corridors feel more ominous. The sirens echoing off the concrete walls weren't part of any protocol she recognized. There was no sublevel in the official blueprints, no hidden wing, no restricted basement, but the alarm was real, and someone far above her classification had activated it. A cold realization crawled up her spine. Someone had built a secret floor into a state prison. Someone with power. Someone with reach. And Elias Ward had been taken straight into it. Or worse, he had gone willingly. A hidden elevator, a hidden agenda. She reached the end of the East Wing corridor, where the alarms were loudest. A blank concrete wall stood before her, marked by nothing except a faint outline on the floor. One she would have missed if she weren't trained to notice the smallest mistakes. A square imprint, like an elevator door that had once been flush with the ground. Her radio crackled. Chief Rourke, we're reading structural anomalies beneath your location, an entire subterranean level. Dana stared at the wall, anger tightening in her jaw. How was this ever proved? Her deputy's voice came back tense. It wasn't. There are no records, no permits, no construction logs. Someone hid it from the state. Dana exhaled slowly. Then we're dealing with more than an internal leak. She pressed her hand to the concrete. It moved. A sliver of light cracked open through the seam as the hidden elevator began to rise from below. The descent into the unknown. When the doors opened, the first thing she noticed was a smell. Not harsh or chemical, just stale, like a place no one was supposed to enter. A place kept sealed for a reason. Her team assembled behind her, but she lifted a hand. No one comes down unless I tell you. They hesitated, but obeyed. The elevator descended with a heavy shudder, sinking beneath the official structure of the prison and into territory that technically didn't exist. At the bottom, the doors opened to a narrow hallway lit by low blue lights. The walls were smooth metal, the kind used in government labs rather than correctional facilities. Dana stepped forward, her footsteps echoing softly. Then she saw them, boot prints in the dust. Fresh ones. 3 sets, the intruders. And a 4th, light, precise. Elias Ward. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was being escorted, like someone being delivered. The room no one was supposed to know about. The hallway opened into a large chamber, cold, clean, and filled with rows of locked cabinets. Not prison cells. Not storage. Files. Thousands of them. Unmarked. Unlogged. The kind of files someone would build a hidden sublevel to protect. Dana approached the nearest cabinet and tugged it open. Inside were documents stamped with federal seals, surveillance photos, and transcripts of operations she had only heard rumors about, off-the-books cases, experimental programs, and covert intelligence activities conducted behind the public eye. The hair on her arm stood up. This wasn't a prison basement. It was a government archive hidden beneath a facility no one would suspect. A voice echoed behind her. You were never supposed to see this. The man behind the transfer. Dana spun around. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, composed, dressed in state-issued administrative clothing, but wearing the confidence of someone far above the pay grade the uniform suggested. Warden Caleb Mercer. But he wasn't supposed to be here. Officially, he was on medical leave. He studied her calmly. I knew you'd come, Dana. You're predictable in that way. Where's Elias? She demanded. Mercer sighed softly, as if speaking to someone who simply didn't understand. Elias is an inmate. He never was. He's an asset. Dana felt the floor tilt under her feet. A what? Mercer gestured around the room. This archive contains decades of intelligence operations, black site programs, shadow investigations. Occasionally, an operative becomes too valuable to leave exposed. You hid him among criminals, she said. Mercer nodded. Precisely. No safer place to bury someone than a system already ignored by the public. Dana's voice hardened. The convoy attack, you let it happen. Not exactly, Mercer replied. We predicted it. Elias predicted it. He worked undercover within an organization that wanted him dead the moment he resurfaced. Dana stared at him. You used a state prison transport as bait. Mercer didn't deny it. We needed to draw them out, confirm their existence, intercept their operatives. Everything was controlled. Controlled? Dana stepped closer. Officers were injured. The facility was compromised. You put innocent people at risk. Mercer's eyes narrowed. A small price, he said, to stop a network far more dangerous than you can imagine. The twist that changes everything. Dana scanned the room again. If Mercer was telling the truth, this wasn't about an inmate at all. It was about a massive intelligence breach that had been quietly unfolding, hidden behind the facade of a transfer gone wrong. And Elias Ward, he wasn't a criminal. He was a government plant. Dana's radio chirped suddenly, her deputy's frantic voice punching through the static. Chief, you need to get out of there. We detected movement heading toward the prison. Fast-moving vehicles, unmarked, maybe 10 or more. Mercer sighed. Too late. Mercer, she said slowly, what did you do? He straightened his coat. I used the transfer to flush out their ground teams. Now I'm using this location to bring in the rest. Dana froze. He wasn't panicking, because this was part of his plan. You set a trap, she whispered. For them, he said. And for you. Her heart slammed once inside her chest, because behind Mercer, the elevator doors began sliding open again, and inside that elevator was Elias Ward, alive, calm, and staring at Dana with eyes that held no fear, no uncertainty, just quiet calculation. Hello, Chief Rourke, he said. You've made this more difficult. Who are you? She demanded. Elias stepped into the chamber. The reason all of this exists. The final unraveling. Before Dana could speak again, the facility shook, a distant thud that rumbled to the metal floors. Mercer checked his watch. They've arrived. What do they want? Dana asked. Elias answered for him. They want me, and now they want you. Dana felt her world narrow into a single, terrifying clarity. She had stumbled into a secret war, one unfolding beneath the country's own prison system. And she wasn't walking out of this room the same person she was when she entered. Maybe she wasn't walking out at all. The ending, dark, haunting, unresolved. Mercer motioned toward the far wall as hidden panels slid open, revealing a reinforced command center. Come with us, Dana, he said. You're a part of this now, whether you accept it or not. Elias spoke quietly. And if you don't, the people outside that gate won't care that you're an investigator. Dana's deputy shouted through the radio, Chief, they're breaching the outer fence. She looked from Mercer to Elias. Two men standing in the middle of a secret the government would never acknowledge. Make a choice, Elias said softly, but make it fast. The facility shook again. Lights flickered. The alarm screamed. And the chapter closed on Dana Rourke standing between two worlds. The official one she had sworn to serve, and the hidden one she had just fallen into. And that is the truth behind a prison transfer that reshaped U.S. history. A chain of decisions, secrets, and silent betrayals that almost vanish in the dark until investigators pulled the final thread. Cases like this remind us how quickly power can shift and how the smallest detail can expose the biggest lies. If you want more real-world crime stories just like this, dark, gripping, and impossible to forget, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and like the video. Your support helps these stories reach more people. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next case.